Welcome back to Diabetes Every Day. Today, I want to cover a topic that keeps coming up. I think there's some confusion on what happens to blood sugar readings when we eat food. And when I'm saying we eat food, I'm going to cover all of the we's. I'm going to cover type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and people without diabetes. So what we have today is a standard amount of carbohydrate. I have 4 glucose tablets here, which is 15 grams. And what I want to do is show you on a graph, and I have an assistant here. He's representing the people without diabetes as well. And you're going to help me to graph out what happens. Let's start with somebody with type 1 diabetes. All 3 of these groups of people are starting out with a 100 milligram per deciliter blood sugar reading. And so what happens for somebody with type 1 diabetes when they would have this 15 gram portion? All right, so about a half hour later, within the half hour, the blood sugar rises. Okay, can you please draw out for somebody with type 2 diabetes, what happens to their blood sugar reading? Okay, the blood sugar rises about the same amount. All right, how about somebody that does not have diabetes? In the green pen, let's see what happens to their blood sugar. What? Here's where some of the confusion happens. Many people think that people without diabetes, that their blood sugar doesn't rise, but in fact, it does. So all 3 categories of people, type 1, type 2, people without diabetes, when we eat foods with carbohydrate, for all of us, our blood sugar does rise. So now we're going to see what happens.
So now we're going to see what happens as time passes.
Okay, continue on.
Type 1.
All right. So type 1, we're going to an hour, 1 to 2 hours afterwards, the blood sugar continues to rise for people with type 1 diabetes.
For type 2.
Okay. People with type 2 diabetes, the blood sugar rises, and about 1 to the 2 hour mark, it starts to flatten out. Okay. And what about people that do not have diabetes? So it does not continue to rise, but it comes back down to target levels. Interesting, right? All right, so we need to cover a lot of what ifs. So first we started with what happens when we ingest carbohydrates for all 3 categories. Now we need to talk about, I don't want to leave you hanging here, so what happens, what do we need to do to have that really nice blood sugar reading that's in target? So for people with type 1 diabetes, can you just point at the beginning there? Right at the beginning, before they ingest carbohydrates, they would take insulin to help blunt that blood sugar rise. So by taking insulin, their blood sugar, our goal is to come into target range of blood sugar readings. Okay? People with type 1 diabetes may also exercise to help blunt it, but exercise alone for people with type 1 diabetes will not lower it that much. People with type 1 diabetes require insulin. Now we want to talk about what to do with type 2 diabetes. We know that we will have a blood sugar rise when we eat, but we want to make sure that it's not an extended rise in blood sugar readings. So there's a couple things. Lifestyle is huge. It's a very big part about it. Management. One thing is that exercise is part of lifestyle, so exercise can help blunt that rise from continuing. Another thing is healthy eating lifestyle, which there are some things with healthy eating that we can do. I gave the example of glucose tabs, and we know that glucose tabs are going to give you a rise quickly. That's what we use if our blood sugar readings are dropping low, below 70. That's something to make it rise. But there's other things that we could do with healthy eating, like mixing carbohydrate and protein at a meal, not having carbohydrate just by itself. Or we can add fat to our meal with the carbohydrate. Those are things, eating higher in fiber, lower glycemic index foods. Those are some healthy eating tips that we can do to help blunt it. And then there's also medication, type 2 diabetes medications. The third what that we're going to talk about today is, what am I aiming for? It's good to know what your target range is for blood sugar readings. For both people with type 1 and type 2 diabetes, we follow the American Diabetes Association guidelines, which tell us before meals, fasting or before meals, our blood sugars should be between 80 and 130 milligrams per deciliter. For people without diabetes, before meals or fasting, their blood sugar reading should be 70 to 99. And then 2 hours after the start of eating, our blood sugar should be 180 or less if we have type 1 or type 2 diabetes. And for those that do not have diabetes, your blood sugar targets are 140 or less, less than 140. So less than 180, 2 hours after eating for people with diabetes, and less than 140 for people without diabetes. Remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You never know what fascinating information you'll learn here.